a moment to connect. Oh, can you hear me now? Okay, good. So just let us know when the live feed is ready. They're ready? Okay. Go ahead.
Good evening. This is Chair Wilcoxon, and I'd like to formally call the meeting to order of the Scottsdale Transportation Commission. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to city staff, commissioners, and the public to the February 19th, 2026 Transportation Commission meeting. Meetings are held in person, televised on Cox Cable Channel 11, and streamed online on the scottsdale.az.gov for the public to listen and view the meeting in progress. I'd like to ask for a roll call to begin this evening's meeting.
Chair Wilcoxon?
Here.
Thank you. Vice Chair Cardella?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Marmon?
Here.
Thank you. Is remote. Commissioner Pinkowitz?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Koftile? Here. Thank you. Commissioner Davis is absent. Commissioner Baker?
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Susan. Spoken comment is being accepted for agendized and non-agendized items. The request to speak forms must be submitted no later than 90 minutes before the start of the meeting. Written comment, Susan, do we have any requests to speak?
Chair Wilcoxon, we do have one request to speak filled out.
I have the comment card here. Thank you. Written comments are being accepted for agendized and non-agendized items and should be submitted electronically at least 90 minutes before the start of the meeting. These comments are also emailed to Transportation Commission and posted online. Susan, do we have any written comments?
Chair Wilcoxon, we do not.
Thank you. All right. With that, do we go to spoken comments? So, Carl Whaley, I hope I pronounced your name right. If you want to come up to the podium, and or
this one.
This is it.
Oh, sorry. The last time we tried, this one wasn't working, but
Now it is.
you can use this, and then if you need to put a document here, let me know.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Whaley. If you could state your name and your address for the record. And you have 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. My name's Carl Whaley. I live at 7879 East Coronado Road, Scottsdale, Arizona, 85257. And I'd like to thank the commission for this opportunity to speak this evening. Basically, I've been involved in the study, practice, and advocacy of transportation systems since studying transportation management at Iowa State University more than 50 years ago. I think Susan is a alma of that school also. After graduating from the Iowa State, I entered the Army's Transportation Officers Corps, primarily as a traffic management officer with a brief stint as head of the Army's truck driving school at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Towards the end of my career, I had the opportunity to serve 5 years in Rotterdam and 2 years in Southampton, England. These two duty stations provided me with an understanding of the mobility provided by walking, biking, and public transit. When I retired from the military, I moved first to Mesa and then to Scottsdale, Arizona, but I missed the freedom of mobility I enjoyed in Northern Europe. It seemed to me that the only safe way to cross the street was to get in a car and drive from one parking lot to the next. For a period, I worked for the RPTA and took the opportunity to return to school at ASU and earn my master's degree in environmental planning. My master's thesis dealt with walkability and transit usage. Recently, I lived in Boise, Idaho for 4 years, where I served on the county's Highway Department Transportation Advisory Committee. Before I returned to live full-time in Scottsdale. What I've learned over the years is that transportation choices are continually changing. Uber, Lyft, Waymo, e-bikes, and scooters have all serve to shift mobility choices away from the traditional privately owned vehicle. Vehicle miles traveled per capita in the United States peaked in 2004, and vehicle ownership peaked in 2006. Both have been decreasing since that time, and partially explains why several Scottsdale arterials and collectors warranted downgrading and why there may be excess parking in some parts of our community. What has not changed is that walking is the glue that holds our transportation system and economy together. Walking to or from parking spots or transit stops is an essential component of our access to work, goods, and services. The heart of Scottsdale has always been our Old Town area and is an area that requires a large number of pedestrians to be economically successful. Biking and walking through Old Town, I feel that there are numerous barriers facing pedestrians in that area, and subsequently the number of pedestrians and the range they wander through are limited. For this reason, I would recommend that a walking audit be conducted in Old Town and that members of the Transportation Commission, along with interested merchants, be invited to participate, and I'd like to lead that audit. Thank you for your time this evening. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Whalen. Staff, is that something that we have the ability to look into? Walking audit?
Chair Wilcoxon, we did several walking audits during the safety plan evaluation. We can certainly look into more walking audits. We'll take a look at it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And thank you again, Mr. Whalen. All right. We will move on to the agenda. With the approval of the minutes, did all the commissioners get a chance to read the minutes from our last meeting, January? Yes. Are there any comments or corrections to be made on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from the January 15th, 2026 meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Kofthal. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Baker. Do we do a roll call vote then for this?
Sorry. Chair Wilcoxon?
Approved?
Thank you. Vice Chair Cardella?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Marmon?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Pankowicz?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Kofthal?
Approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Thank you. Minutes are approved.
Thank you, Susan. Going to item number 2, appointment to new commissioner to the Paths and Trails Subcommittee. This is going to require a vote, nomination and a vote. Do we have any commissioners who would be interested in serving on the Paths and Trails Subcommittee? I believe the term is for 1 year, and it would require 6 meetings. The first Thursday of every month, Susan, is that correct?
Chair Wilcoxon, the first Thursday evening every other month, starting in February.
Every other month, yes. Since we moved to 12 months of the year, that would make sense.
Thank you.
6 meetings, okay. Do I have any commissioners who are eligible to serve and interested in serving?
I would like to continue.
Commissioner Commissioner Marmon, was that you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, so
Well-
you're still on there. I'll double check the date that you started, but this would be for Commissioner Kofthal's position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know that Commissioner Davis is not eligible, but we could vote him in absentia. Wouldn't that be a surprise when he gets back from vacation?
That's what you get for going out of town or taking the night off.
All right, it looks like we have no one interested in serving. Not sure what that means going forward.
I will check. I will check with the city clerk. I know that Commissioner Koftheil's term was supposed to be done last November, and when I asked if he could still attend the February meeting, they said that would be okay until we filled the role, but I don't know if that's something that can be done long-term. So I'll look into it and get back to everyone.
Okay, Commissioner Koftheil?
Did I give the wrong day? The first Thursday evening every other month? No, it used to be on Tuesday mornings, but we wanted it to coincide with the Transportation Commission schedule a little bit more. That's why it moved to Thursday evenings a while back.
Okay. So you'll check to see if Kyle can remain, or Commissioner Koftheil can remain on the, not sure why I call him.
Paths and Trails Subcommittee.
Paths and Trails Subcommittee.
Yes.
Lee, if that is, if you are allowed to stay until your replacement is found, would you be able to do that, or willing to do that?
I would be willing to stay on until a replacement's found for me.
I guess Chair Wilcoxon and members of the Transportation Commission, if Davis is not eligible, then everybody who's here has no interest in sitting on the Paths and Trails Subcommittee, then I guess we're going to have to, I guess, is there time that the commissioners need to think about sitting on the committee, or is this a firm no interest in sitting on the committee, and then we'd have to go and see if we get a at-large resident approval through the council?
Well, I think, for example, for me, I would like more information regarding the time commitment,
Okay.
the specific date, and maybe we can bring it back to the next, our next Transportation Commission.
Commissioner Baker, that sounds good. I was just making sure that there was some room here where somebody would be interested, or if it was a hard no for everybody, then we would probably have to look to see how we amend the rules of the Paths and Trails Subcommittee.
It's not a hard no for me. I just need to know what that time commitment is.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay, and then just to clarify, generally, the group has a similar number of agenda items as Transportation Commission, and the goal is, to stick to the 5:15 as late as 7:30 on that evening and not go over that amount of time. And then it's a similar packet ahead of the meeting to review the slides and the reports. So it's a more, at times, in-depth discussion on paths and trails for people walking, biking, and riding horses than what Transportation Commission sometimes looks at, and then any action items and recommendations from the Paths and Trails Subcommittee a lot of times will come then to the Transportation Commission to have the same presentation and requested action.
So the next meeting would be in April?
Correct. The next Paths and Trails Subcommittee meeting would be the first Thursday evening in April, and then the next Transportation Commission meeting is also in April. So if we need to return with this item, that would be the next time it happens, since the March meeting is canceled for this commission.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Susan, if you could, I've served on the committee. It's a lot of fun, but if you could find out if we can serve again, that would also maybe open up some possibilities for people wanting to re-up.
Thank you. I will double check.
Okay, moving on to item number 3. Scottsdale Americans with Disability Act ADA Transition Plan Update. This is for information, and it will be presented tonight by Felicia Beltran, the ADA Title IV Compliance Coordinator for the City of Scottsdale. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Commission for inviting me and having me speak today. My name is Felicia Beltran. I'm the city's ADA Title VI Compliance Coordinator. And today I'll be giving an update on on Scottsdale's ADA Transition Plan. So the requirements of the ADA Transition Plan stem from requirements of federal financial recipients such as the City of Scottsdale. Since the authorization of Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and then again, this requirement was reaffirmed with the passage of the ADA in 1990. However, we all know it's more than just about compliance. It's about ensuring that everybody has access to the city's services, programs, and activities. Tourism is a cornerstone of Scottsdale's economy, and accessibility directly supports that success. By embedding accessibility into every aspect of planning and our design of our projects, Scottsdale demonstrates that accessibility and prosperity go hand in hand. At the end of the day, anyone who is not currently a part of the disability community can very well age into this population, which is why this plan is critical and vital for everyone. Just a background of the ADA transition plan. It was last updated in July of 2022. Last year, March 4, 2025, City Council approved funding for the current update, and we anticipate that the final update of the plan will be completed this spring in 2026. I'm going to review some of the transition plan elements that will be included. One, it'll be that we will identify the official responsible for implementation of the plan. We'll also include Scottsdale ADA Notice to the Public, and we'll identify our design standards for accessibility. We'll also include our inventory of barriers that were identified during the self-evaluation that was conducted as part of this update. And we will discuss the robust public participation efforts that we launched as in the process of updating this plan. And our plan will also discuss timelines associated with removing all the barriers identified in the self-evaluation process. And that will use a calculation that uses prioritization and funding to get to that timeline. And lastly, the transition plan will discuss monitoring of the plan. So again, the official responsible for the implementation of Scottsdale's ADA transition plan is the ADA Task Force Compliance Coordinator, myself. Here we have Scottsdale's ADA Notice to the Public, again advising the public on their rights under the ADA, and also it notifies them of grievance procedures should a complaint be filed. So our standards for accessibility, Scottsdale ADA design standards always try to achieve PROAC standards, which apply to the pedestrian environment. However, we also utilize 2010 ADAC standards, which applies to newly constructed or altered facilities. And we also incorporate our own design standards and policies from our manual in 2018. So the self-evaluation that will be included as part of the transition plan update evaluated and conducted an ADA field assessments on all the city-owned buildings and facilities. It also reviewed public rights-of-way and our communications, such as our city websites for ADA compliance, and also incorporates public input that we received as part of this update when we asked the community to tell us about any accessibility challenges within the city. As part of this update, we are developing a geographic information system, an interactive tracking system that is going to help the city monitor compliance of the self-evaluation and transition plan. This GIS system will provide a unified framework to address the self-evaluation findings, such as our ramps, our sidewalks, pedestrian signals, and facilities and park assets. But really importantly, it'll allow us to visually see where we have barriers of clusters of inaccessibility features in our city. And we'll also be able to layer it with populations to show us where those populations are most affected and show us how proposed improvements align with our high priority areas for improvements. Essentially, we're going to add these GIS layers. We'll include our barriers We'll add prioritization tiers and capital project locations and community requested improvements. And together, this system will allow us to have a data-driven assessment to determine where are going to be our annual improvements and where are they priorities. Here's a snapshot of the dashboard of what our system looks like now. We were utilizing it to track our progress in the self-evaluation process. So here you can see we were tracking total facilities to assess, still need to be assessed, and then our parks that we had assessed and what percentage we still need to go out there and do our self-evaluation. So as a part, I've discussed it earlier, I mentioned that as part of this transition plan update, we conducted a robust public involvement plan, and that included 3 public meetings, social media campaigns, public and employee accessibility questionnaires, also updates to our Scottsdale 8A webpage, and we launched a public QR code campaign at high-traffic city facilities to solicit feedback from the public on accessibility challenges within the city. And we partnered with various ADA advocacy groups just to help get the outreach out to the community and get the voices heard. Also, we conducted in-person outreach at various Scottsdale public events, including an event at our Westworld. So, the big question is, how long is this going to take to address all of the barriers that we identified in the self-evaluation process? Well, again, timelines will be calculated based on a criteria that balances both priorities and available funding, those 2 things carefully. And I'm going to review some of the priorities that will go into our prioritization considerations, which will be 1, public input will be a high priority item. What we heard from the public on where their biggest challenges are will be considered. Also, access to emergency services and access to our high-use parks and accessibility features there. Also, alignments around major transit systems. And we'll also consider major employment and retail sites, especially our downtown. And we'll consider some key pedestrian corridors to prioritize where our efforts should start first. And this is just some of the items. There's a lot of other considerations that are going to go into this formula as well. So the other half of that equation is really we have to identify some funding sources. As you can imagine, we have a lot of inventory that does need ADA improvements. And we're going to consider these following sources are like our transportation sales tax, our HERF funding potentially, funding from general fund, our transportation 2% sales tax, and other departmental budgets. And also we're always continuing to look for state, regional funding sources or federal grants. So to go back to that question on how long is this going to take to remove all of the barriers? Well, again, balancing both those priorities and available funding, we know that the transition plan could occur over an extended period. However, once we do establish that timeline, we are going to commit to annual projects that we will identify in the transition plan. So, as part of the transition plan, there will be a monitoring mechanism that will be conducted annually by the ADA Title VI Compliance Coordinator, and any significant updates to the plan will include a public comment period as well, just to maintain transparency and keep us accountable for movement on that transition plan. So some of the next steps is we anticipate releasing the draft plan for public comments in the next month or so, and we will be presenting it to City Council for approval, and again, finalization later this spring. But really, we see the commission's, the Transportation Commission's key role is your input. When that plan is released for public comments, we want your input, we want your perspectives, we want to have a great plan, and also we want you to help us with the distribution efforts to get the word out that this plan is available and we're looking for public comments. I am open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beltran. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Koftal.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I had just a couple of questions for you. I was just curious, do you have any idea of what percentage of the public has ADA requirements, specifically Scottsdale citizens, but since we're such a destination city, maybe just more generally, what the population of our general visitors and the citizens have that like need ADA requirements?
Well, as far as what I've seen, really the census doesn't break it down to that level. However, I have seen other scholarly articles that report about 20%. So that's a figure that I've read before. But again, it's all an estimate depending on the time frames, the year, et cetera. There's a lot of factors into that, but that's the information that I have.
Okay. Then I had a question, just basically, as far as information, how often do you get feedback from the public about needing ADA requirements and things like? I live in South Scottsdale, and a lot of my neighbors don't even know how to contact the city for when they need something, and so I'm just curious where your reports are coming from, because a lot of this, it seems like, is self-evaluation rather than, like, you have in there public input, but there's not a lot of it. It seems like the people I run into don't know how to provide the feedback for what they need.
Sure. And thank you for the question. And just with regards to the universe of the needs that are reported to us, they come in a variety of ways. I mean, sometimes the residents or people, visitors, tourists, they call. When they look up the city's email or the web address and they see ADA, they call. So I feel a lot of calls just in general from just general ADA questions. However, I mentioned the Scottsdale Notice to the Public. That's a method where we post those at our public facilities. That's a method to notify the public. If there's any issues, challenges, grievances, this is who you contact and this is how we can address those. So that's really one of the ways that is effective in getting that word out. And also we have established an ADA Title VI liaison program in each department. Training's been conducted there as well as, so when they're engaging, like our parks, our human services, our library services, when they're engaging with the public, they're also aware of notifying the public of their rights, and they have that notice to the public as well. But really they're interacting with their customers and they're proactively offering, do you need any assistance? And just offering those services. So those are some of the ways that we kind of engage with the public, or that they are aware that we do exist. But again, there's always the opportunity to really have that direct engagement, and the Scottsdale ADA webpage right now, it has an open comment field where people can at any point report any issues that they have. And we also have a Scottsdale EZ system as well, where the public can also report any other city issues, but also EDA related issues as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Commissioner Pangowitz.
I have a couple of questions for you. Along with the GIS layers that you mentioned, does the city have a sidewalk GIS layer, or maybe it's easier to have a no sidewalk GIS layer?
From my knowledge, I'm pretty sure we do, because when we were incorporating data into this GIS system, I believe they provided some GIS data, but Nathan, do you want to confirm?
Chair Wilcoxon, members of the Transportation Commission. We do have a sidewalk layer. The way it was inputted, it was a polygon layer rather than a line layer, and I've seen that become outdated pretty quickly as we make updates. So we do have that layer, but I've seen it fall behind quickly, and updating a polygon layer is quite a higher task or more endeavor to take than just a line layer. Greg, if you have, this is your job. No? Okay.
Yeah, that was my next question in terms of updating and maybe working with development services. We know that for certain kinds of development, developers are required to put sidewalk, and that's a great way to set up a system. Granted, it's not just your department's responsibility. It would come across a lot of departments to keep that updated.
Chair Wilcoxon, members of the Transportation Commission, we're working on a layer for our stipulations from developments to try and highlight where we're getting those kind of improvements, and so we can document those on the layer. I can say from our department, we're excited for this layer. We have not had, there was once an attempt to make an ADA, or at least a curb ramp layer to show which ones were there and which ones were in compliance. That only encompassed a very small area, so us having this resource to show all of the ramps throughout the entire city and what level of compliance they are in is going to be very helpful for us.
And that's a great question, Commissioner, especially because keeping that inventory updated. We're completing the exercise of the self-evaluation the end of this month. Keeping and maintaining that data is a big challenge. However, in the transition plan, we have listed out requirements for all the departments who conduct any type of ADA improvements in our public rights-of-way or our facilities and buildings have to interact with the system when they go in and make updates. So that's a way to maintain that the data is updated. Because again, if we don't utilize this new GIS system, after we just did this big exercise with the self-evaluation, all the data is not even fresh and it's not relevant anymore, which is why that's a big part of the component of the plan that I'm really excited about, is that the requirement to interface with this when you are updating any type of our assets in the city. That way, again, our inventory will always be updated, and if we get a complaint from the member of the public, we can actually see if there's a planned improvement there utilizing that system and give instantly that information to the public. So again, I'm so excited about this GIS system, and it's really going to move our program light speeds. And so I'm excited for y'all to see that.
Thank you. Well, I'm excited too, and I think you make a good point that we can have all the great plans, but if we don't institutionalize the methods behind the plans, sometimes things fall to the wayside. My next question is this, and this is a little bit harder because there are ways to know which parts of the city flood in terms of like ramps that accumulate water or like sidewalks and things like that. I know like you can use LiDAR to kind of estimate how much something could flood, but is that, and I know that's expensive, but is there any data that exists, or we can hear from residents, but certainly not for the whole city unless it's like a LiDAR thing where you know where things are gonna flood, but that causes barriers for people or just discomfort if you have to get somewhere?
That's a great question. Nathan, do we have data like that?
I don't believe we have incorporated that into this evaluation. If we hear that a ramp is accumulating water, we can maybe try to adjust it. A large portion of how we bring ADA ramps into compliance is through the pavement program, and they will try to even out that pavement and make sure that there's not any parts that are pooling in those areas. So I do know that's a part of that. So we're pretty systematically going through the city as we do the pavement preservation, and hopefully they can catch spots like that. But no, we don't do an evaluation of any pooling there. It'll be resident complaints, or if they see maybe a low flow area when they're doing the repaving part.
And that's a good point as well, too. Through this GIS system, we are going to be working to implement a system where the public, if they see any type of issues with regards to potentially flooding and therefore it's inaccessible, that they can interact with this GIS system, make that comment, and it instantly goes to us so we can begin addressing it too. So that's another feature that we want to add to that GIS system just to make it more interactive and up-to-date information where we can actually, make that improvement or put it into our project cycle as well. So that's something that we want to add to that as well.
That would be wonderful. I have a couple more questions. So along with ramps, a lot of cities just do the one ramp at the corner with the tactile domes leading to the middle of the intersection. And I know sometimes that's a space constraint, but and ramps are expensive, at least $10,000 a piece, I think. But still, human life is more expensive when we account for it. Does the plan account for how to do both directions at an intersection?
So I mentioned the standards we utilize in ADA design, and those PROAC standards especially, they identify that if there is space constraints, they identify how to ensure you still get those accessible ramps at the intersections. So there's definitely ways to overcome those challenges and yet still meet your standards, your ADA standards. So, and again, that's our standard is to achieve PROAC standards. However, we have other standards that we can similarly achieve that type of a compliance. So yeah, we're gonna identify the standards we will utilize, like I mentioned, PROAC, and those are very extensive, specifically for the public rights-of-way, which would include your intersections.
And my last question is regarding construction in the right-of-way. And every city and sometimes every project does it differently. And when it comes to bike lanes being closed or sidewalks being closed, sometimes a pedestrian or even a person with a mobility challenge gets to an intersection and then they're told to cross. And there is also the issue of the kind of barrier between traffic and the person. Is that, I know some cities have manuals on how to do it, but is that something that is already standardized for the city, or will this plan look into it?
So we will have standards as far as ADA standards when there is any type of closures that we will utilize an alternate safe temporary ADA accessible route. That's a requirement to do that. So that's definitely addressed in the PROAC standards and our standards. Nathan?
We are certainly doing our best to accommodate that. Every time that there's a closure for construction, we're trying to make sure there's a detour, an effective detour for pedestrian and bike access. We're trying to follow the regulations. We're trying to do the best we can. There's some times that I think we could have probably done better in previous times, but we monitor that and make sure that we have that available walking path through that construction site.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not even the city, but like just people doing construction are the ones that I think get the permit to close the right of way. And I'm wondering if there is document or guidance that they can follow. And I don't mean the alternate path, because anyone can figure out what that is. And if you've never had a mobility disability or you've never been blind, I guess, it doesn't matter to you. You're just thinking you're providing a path. But for a person that has to navigate that path with a disability, it's very different. So like I'm talking about more about the signing and guiding people to a safe path and a standardization of the barrier between traffic and people. And I'm referring more, and I don't know if this plan can address this or if it's just better way to do business with developers and people doing construction, of providing one pager on all of the things that are wanted when it comes to closing sidewalks.
Chair Wilcoxon, Commissioner Pankowitz, we do have a document that we referenced. That's the City of Phoenix Traffic Barricade Manual. To your questions about if we're gonna close something, we're gonna close it and not lead the pedestrian to the closure. We actually close it way ahead in advance and detour them. If we happen to take them into the streets, there's a barrier that they are required to provide for pedestrians. Thank you.
Thank you. That was all my questions. Thank you so much, and thanks for the presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Commissioner Baker, any questions? And on the line, Bob, Commissioner Marmon, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Felicity. I did have a couple questions. I appreciate the comments about the GIS sidewalk layer. I would also argue that throughout the city there are plenty of abandoned driveway cuts that are no longer being used as such and represent a barrier that needs to be corrected. And for the updated easement or development layer, that would be something to consider as well. Not just new facilities, but returning unused features back to normal. For the question that Commissioner Kofteil asked about registered or a number of disabled community in the city, I'm wondering if ADOT would be able to provide some kind of information as far as disabled parking licenses that are registered or that are owned by people who live in Scottsdale. And then for John, I had a question about ADA compliance on traffic signals, specifically the rectangular rapid flashing beacons. I know that when I was with Phoenix, we didn't really have a good way of warning people who were visually impaired that the light is working, and it was a difficult thing because it's not an advisor, or it's not a regulatory stop. So you're maybe advising people that the light is flashing and traffic may not stop. Has that changed at all, or do we still not provide audible warning for rectangular rapid flashing beacons?
Chair Wilcoxon, commissioners, that's a very good question. We actually exploring that with the audible technology and also the passive detection, which is also audible to the impaired. But that's still in a very early pilot project.
Thank you. And then Felicia, one last question for you. Do we have any information on people with disabilities, whatever that may be, being injured anywhere on city streets or sidewalks?
From my time here, Chair Wilcoxon, from my time here, I haven't received any notifications of injuries, just more accessible complaints. Perhaps Nathan or...
I haven't gotten any complaints of injuries happening related to accessibility, more the accessibility complaints as well.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you both. It's very difficult to get that information, but go, I'm sorry.
But I will add to your question, Chair Wilcoxon, on the APS. That was part of the self-evaluation for this evaluation. They went out to different signals, and APS and audible was a measurement that they are going to identify. So we will know what that inventory looks like as part of the self-evaluation, and we can start preparing for updates in a synchronized manner.
That's great. Thank you. Commissioner Pankowitz, I know.
One more question, I'm sorry. When I worked at City of Phoenix, one of the complaints that we had from people with mobility issues was when sidewalks buckled. And this was an internal issue for us because I guess other cities had the machinery to grind down the sidewalk and bring it back to the level. And at the city at the time, they were just adding asphalt to the crack. And that's one of those institutional barriers that you could have a plan, but the way to fix something like that was not necessarily addressed in the plan. The city had to kind of find the money and allocate it to buy that kind of machinery to do that. Do you know if that's, I know that that's not a barrier that comes up often, but when it comes to the equipment, does the city have the equipment to address it in the way that a person with a mobility disability would appreciate it?
So I will say, with regards to standards for sidewalks, our manual, our 2018 manual, but also our ProAct standards as well, address what the sidewalk grade needs to be. And I think with regards to ensuring that everybody is trained to know that when you do go out for maintenance, you need to apply those ProAct standards or our own standards as well, which are in compliance with the ADA. So I think that's part of the issue, but Nathan, if you want to add to that.
We do have the capabilities of repairing buckling of sidewalks in many different ways, whether we're replacing the panels or whether we're pulling them down to ease that. So when we get those complaints, we do repair those. Whenever there's a monsoon season, we'll see those pop up.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Commission.
All right, moving on to item number 4, 78th Street and Gold Dust traffic calming update. And this is a carryover from an item we discussed a few months back, or a few meetings back, regarding a request to traffic calm 78th Street. Presenting will be Elaine Dominguez. Go ahead. Welcome.
Thank you. Chair Wilcoxon, members of the Transportation Commission, my name is Elaine Dominguez. My title is Senior Traffic Engineer, and today I'll be discussing the 78th Street and Gold Dust Avenue pedestrian crossing evaluation. So just going over a little bit of the background, this request stems from citizen concerns from the La Cuesta community, who submitted a petition to City Council back in January 2025 regarding speeding along the segment of 78th Street from Mountain View Road to Shea Boulevard. So the original petition had 3 requests, which was an always stop at the intersection of 78th Street and Gold Dust, lowering the speed limit from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour on 78th Street, and reclassifying 78th Street from a minor collector to a local collector. After several iterations of evaluation from our department as well as the fire department, we identified a new approach, which consisted of the installation of 2 sets of speed cushions north and south of Gold Dust Avenue, complying with the requests for the speed limit reduction and reclassification of 78th Street, and lastly, the installation of a high visibility crosswalk on the north leg. So city staff presented at the Transportation Commission meeting on September 2025 last year. The purpose of the presentation was to request an exemption to the neighborhood traffic management policy in regards to the recommendation to install speed cushions on 78th Street. In that presentation, Vice Chair, at the time Vice Chair Wilcoxon, asked if the crosswalk on the north leg had met our pedestrian crossing warrant guidelines, or if the purpose of the crosswalk was as a traffic calming measure. So at the time, no crossing evaluation had been conducted at that location. As part of the meeting, the commission moved to approve the speed cushion and the street reclassification and the speed limit reduction. But as part of the motion, requested that a pedestrian crossing evaluation be conducted to determine both the need of a crosswalk and the location of the crosswalk. So just giving a high-level overview, this is same figure as the last presentation. The intersection is located between Mountain View and Shea and between Scottsdale and Hayden. And I want to point out that here 78th Street is shown as a minor collector, but will be reclassified to the local collector designation. And here again is an overview of the intersection. So the intersection is minor road stop controlled, with Gold Dust being the minor road, and highlighting that the speed on 78th Street is currently posted at 30, but will be changed to 25 miles per hour, which would be then the same for all approaches. So the governing document that we use to evaluate pedestrian crossings is the City of Scottsdale Guidelines to Identify Pedestrian Crossing Treatments, which I'm sure you guys are aware of. So I won't go into the details, but it's just the document that we use to identify and prioritize enhanced pedestrian crossing treatments. And I've listed the evaluation criteria, the different considerations that the guidelines provide when determining if a treatment is warranted and the type. So the first step was to collect data as part of the evaluation. So starting with the volume data, the average daily traffic came out to 1,860 vehicles per day. And this came from data that was collected in March 2024. For the pedestrian volumes, we deployed cameras to record the intersection from October 14th to October 16th of 2025. And we counted the pedestrians in 15-minute intervals. So the peak hour was found to be from 7 to 8 a.m. with 14 pedestrians. 6 pedestrians were crossing the north leg, and 8 pedestrians were crossing the south leg. And so the total number included both legs of the intersection. Lastly, the collision data. So the most recent 5 years of data was reviewed. There was a total of 2 collisions which occurred at this intersection, with only one that was involving a bicycle or a pedestrian. It was involving a bicycle, sorry. A bicyclist that was going westbound that failed to stop and collided with a southbound vehicle. So that is a collision that is perhaps susceptible to correction with a pedestrian crossing treatment. So here's a summary of the evaluation and the associated score for each of the considerations. I'll just go through these quickly. So the origin and destination is based off the mag gravity demand model. The score came out to between 108 and 133. I discussed the pedestrian and vehicle volumes. The distance to the nearest crossing is approximately a quarter mile, down to Mountain View up to Shea. The posted speed limit was evaluated as the proposed speed limit rather than what's existing, so at 25 miles per hour. Crossing distance 55 feet, and there's no median. There's a street light directly above the intersection on the north of Gold Dust. As I mentioned, one collision relating to bicycle and pedestrians. And then lastly, the sight distance. There's not a score associated with that, but the intersection does meet the minimum sight distance here. So the total score that the location received was 28. So per the guidelines, a minimum score of 30 points must be achieved for the location to be considered for an RRFB, PHB, signal, or separated grade crossing. So it doesn't specifically identify less robust treatments, but ultimately the recommendation is that no enhanced pedestrian crossing treatment be applied at this intersection, with the caveat that the intersection may be reevaluated at a later date if there is a change in conditions at the intersection or within the surrounding area. So the justification for this determination, the mag gravity demand model did not show a high amount of pedestrian and bicycle activity in the area. The pedestrian volume data that we collected also showed that the crossings were sporadic throughout the day. Vehicle volumes are relatively low on 78th Street. And lastly, related to the changes we're making, the posted speed is changing to 25 miles per hour, and 78th Street is being reclassified to a local collector, meaning that this intersection is more of a local intersection, not warranting a high visibility crosswalk. So this item is on the agenda for possible action. So the commission may choose to vote to approve or reject the recommendation of no enhanced pedestrian crossing treatment at the intersection of 78th Street and Goldust. If you choose to take no action, then staff is going to move forward with the recommendation as it stands.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Pinkowitz.
I have one quick question. Can you go back to your warranting criteria?
Oh, the table?
Yes, the table,
Uh-huh.
sorry. So you measure pedestrian volume, but I'm assuming that you're also counting bicycles and people in other mobility devices?
Yes, so it was number of people who were crossing, so crossing from either side of 78th Street, regardless of if they're walking or riding their bike or scooters. They were all counted individually.
Okay, and then this is your warranting criteria. You don't measure total pedestrians in a day. You just do like peak hour?
Commissioner Pinkowitz, yes, that is how the evaluation guidelines are written. It's pedestrians per hour, considering the peak hour, whatever time or day that might be.
Okay, that was all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Baker.
Just, maybe it's just me, I've seen more definitions of speed bumps, speed tables, speed cushions. When you identify a speed cushion, how is that different than a speed bump, or how do you define a speed cushion?
Commissioner Baker, members of the Transportation Commission. Yes, I'll explain the difference. So a speed hump is maybe what you're most familiar with. It goes across the entire street. It's usually about 10 feet long along the length of the street. A speed cushion is similar to a speed hump, except for that it has what we call cutouts, approximately, I believe, 6.5 feet, spaced at 6.5 feet, which allow for the tire tracks of emergency vehicles to traverse the device without having to slow down, but the cutouts are still wide enough so that a traditional normal vehicle would still have to go over the device and lower their speed. I believe you said a speed table. So a speed table is similar to a speed hump. They're just elongated. They usually are traversed at higher speeds, so typically are used on streets with a higher posted speed than maybe where a speed cushion would be considered. Hopefully that explains the difference.
Commissioner Koftile? Okay, any questions?
I guess just a clarification on the motion. I was just going to wait till we get there
Okay.
for the motion. So,
Vice Chair
you.
Cardella.
Can you remind me what the residents had requested? Did they request anything in the crossing guard or just a better crossing, better crosswalk?
Vice Chair Cardella, members of the Transportation Commission. The original request did not have any mention of a crosswalk. I'll go back to it, but their original intent was to have always stop control at 78th Street and Goldust. And through a public outreach process, through our own internal evaluation, that morphed from a raised crosswalk to speed cushions with an at-grade crosswalk. So the crosswalk was not actually part of the original request from the community.
Okay, thank you.
And on the phone, Commissioner Marmon.
Thank you. I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Pankowitz, you had an additional question?
One more question. Can you go back to the page where you mentioned when you took the counts? So you collected data on a Wednesday?
For the pedestrians,
Yeah.
I believe we deployed the camera from Tuesday to Thursday, with
Okay.
Wednesday being the full day, but that allowed us to take 2 morning peak time evaluations and 2 afternoon ones total. This specific peak hour occurred on October 15th.
Okay. I guess I would be curious, since when the residents were here, they seemed to walk more recreationally, if the counts would be higher on a Saturday or Sunday when the weather is cooler. I don't remember what the weather was like in October, but something that sometimes happens is, if you have a school nearby, then maybe the weekdays are easy and a good measure to look at the cameras and check for pedestrians. But in this location where people seem to walk more recreationally, I'm wondering if the counts would be higher on a weekend.
Commissioner Pinkowitz, members of the Transportation Commission, I definitely see your point. However, I do believe that this neighborhood would have a high morning peak hour volume, especially for the time of year. But that's something that, if the commission would like, we could further evaluate.
Yeah, I've seen it, at least when I used to work in Phoenix, that there are certain areas where the residents will tell you, we believe the best day for you to come would be a weekday or a weekend. They would make that differentiation. We would never tell them exactly the day we were counting, because some people would just do that. But I'm wondering if perhaps counting, while the weather's so cool within these days, just leaving it up for the weekend and seeing what that peak hour is on a weekend, if it's any different.
Okay, Commissioner Pankowitz, that is something we could consider. I believe that the maximum amount of points for the pedestrian volume was not achieved, and so it is possible that might change the outcome. But like I said, if that's something the commission would like us to explore, we could do that.
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I had just one other question, or really more of a comment. And I just want to go back to the original reason why we were here, or at least why we were talking about this item, and that was we were changing a collector street that was being used as a cut-through, it is classified as a collector street, but in reality it is being used as a cut-through, or at least that's the belief that the residents came to us. They didn't ask for the crosswalk. So the original intent was to reclassify and try and do things to slow things down. And I still believe that the crosswalk is not a good way to do that, and it doesn't appear like there is a need for that. But I would recommend, and we'll take a motion on on what you're asking about, but regardless of the outcome of that motion, I would just encourage the city to, once the speed limit has been lowered and the speed cushions have been installed, to reevaluate the traffic counts and the speeds to see if the original problem of cut-through traffic has been addressed. And then when and if it's appropriate to do another pedestrian count, whether it's weekday or weekend, that's always an option as well. But again, I want to make sure that we're keeping in mind the fact that the original request was more of a traffic calming thing. So that's just my ask. Measure the traffic after you've done the things that have been approved. So with that, unless there's any other questions, I'd be happy to take a motion.
Would this be a good time for me to ask for some clarifications on the motion then?
Yes, Commissioner Koftal.
Okay, so I'm looking at the possible actions. It's approve recommendation of no enhancement or no action staff recommendation. So the recommendation, so those are our two possible actions, is no action or approve the recommendation, but, so is it staff recommendation versus the MAG recommendation? Is that what we're voting on?
Commissioner Koftal, members of the Transportation Commission, perhaps I did not word this correctly, but the motion would be to approve or reject the recommendation. And if you choose not to have a motion, that's when we would just move forward with what the recommendation is. But it was to provide the commission the opportunity to give their input on the ultimate decision to not install any enhanced pedestrian crossing treatment here.
Okay. And the staff recommendation would also, so the community came and asked for a four-way controlled stop, but the staff recommendation would not include that four-way controlled stop?
That's correct, yes. The always stop at 78th and Goldust is a separate item. This is solely regarding the high visibility striped crosswalk, which was previously proposed here.
And so it's a high visibility stripe, but it's also at grade. So like that's, when you say it's at grade, it's one of the, you drop down, cross, and then go back up, right? Is what you're saying?
It means same level as the street.
Okay.
So they would have to enter the street and
Okay.
cross that street level.
So the sidewalk's up higher, and then and so the people crossing would need to go down and then go back
yes.
up. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's okay. For me, I mean, with all deference to Chair Wilcoxon, I mean, I'm always for marked high visibility crosswalks myself, but especially because this one's so, its recommendation is for 30 points and this got 28, so it seems like it's really close, and they are asking, well, they weren't asking for that, so okay, yeah.
Chair Wilcoxon, if I may make another comment regarding your comment, also regarding Commissioner Pankowitz's comment, we could do a reevaluation after the posted speed and the reclassification has been put in place. And as I mentioned, the recommendation did include the caveat is of if conditions change, it could be reevaluated. So once those changes have been made, we would certainly be open to reevaluating this crossing location with the weekend pedestrian volumes as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chair Wilcoxon, commissioners, if I may add to what Helene is saying, so the design is actually at 100%. We're about to finalize the design of the speed cushions, and we intend to do the after study. So if we're able to just kind of push the Saturday data collection to the after study, and if it meets, we can actually implement the high-vis crossing at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I like the idea of making the changes and then reevaluating to see if we need to do anything else.
Thank you, Commissioner Baker. Do we have a motion? Or action?
So I would motion that we would follow approve the recommendations with the caveat that after the changes are done, there is a reassessment to see if the enhanced crossing is needed at that point.
I second the motion.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Getting excited about this. Susan, do you want to call a roll call? First of all, any other questions or comments before we move to a vote?
Just my only comment would be anytime I see that a peak hour is high but not meeting that It's usually because people are walking, and when they have the most time to walk is the weekend. So if staff wanted to set that camera on a Thursday and take it down that Monday, we would see it probably a big difference between the weekday and the weekend. So I think it's important when we do counts to ask the community in which days they see the most people walking and just the kind of walking that they do.
Thank you, Commissioner Pankowitz, and we'll take your suggestions back.
Thank you, Elaine. So we've got a motion and a second, and just to be clear, what we're voting on is approval of the staff recommendation with the caveat that once the changes are put in place, staff would go back and remeasure the speed, the volume, and pedestrian volumes on a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay? When the weather's cool. Okay, so with that, Susan, are we ready for a roll call?
Yes. Chair Wilcoxon?
Approved.
Thank you. Vice Chair Cardella?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Marmon?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Pankowitz?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Croftsdale?
Approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is approved.
Great, and thank you, Helene, for your presentation and your patience with our questions. And thank you, commissioners, for your thoughtful questions and comments on this dicey issue. So thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item is projects and programs update. Nathan is not here, so sitting in relief for Nathan.
Yes, good evening, Chair Wilcoxon and members of the Transportation Commission. I'm Greg Davies. I'm a senior transportation planner. Nathan had to step away, but I'm filling in as a backup quarterback here. So this is just an informational item, and it'll give you some insights on our projects and our programs. The first one is the 2nd Street roadway improvements, and this is actually a bond project that is in the capital improvement program, and I am actually the project manager over this with Derek Rogers in the infrastructure division. In regards to what we plan on doing, we really want to do it's titled roadway improvements in the capital program, but it really involves looking at the corridor of 2nd Street from Goldwater to Drinkwater, and looking at pedestrian and bicycle enhancements, accommodations for cars too, if we need to do specific, leave turn lanes in, whatever we need to do, sidewalk repairs, wide sidewalks, lighting analysis. And the goal right there is to create a better pedestrian and bicycle experience, but it's really an experience for any type of user. It's multimodal, like most of our corridors. So that graphic shows kind of very, very preliminary alternative. In this graphic, right now there is a center continuous left turn lane. In this graphic, we don't show that. We have some bike lane put in there, and we keep the parking. You can see at the intersection there's some bulb outs for the pedestrians for crossings, and so we have already done that on Marshall Way and 2nd Street. So very similar treatments. It's not a real expensive project. We don't have a lot of funds in the capital program, but that's our goal, and it's right around 15% right now. And we're looking at also, as it continues past Drinkwater, as it goes to the library, connecting to the 2nd Street shared use path that leads to the Indian Bend Wash Pass system. Cactus Trail Enhancement Project, this is a project that is underway. This was a petition from 2 residents in the Cactus Acres area. Our plan is to really refresh the trail, and when I say refresh is additional DG. We're going to stabilize the trail. This trail was built back in, I'd say it was around 2007, and we implemented some speeding mitigation on this corridor. We're going to phase it in Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 1 is 96th Street to 102nd Street, and Phase 2 is 102nd to Frank Lloyd Wright. So it's a good project. It will definitely enhance the trail. It'll provide also a steel fence that will be aesthetic. It'll be a naked steel fence. We're kind of modeling after the Scottsdale Ranch fence. That fence you see in that picture is from the Scottsdale Ranch. And so that will help mitigate parking on the trail. We have issues with parking on the trail, so that was the goal behind that. And that was the petition that was the sole basis of the petition. So that project's underway. We're getting the contracts underway, and again, it's phased out. 68th Street sidewalk. This was also a resident request to put sidewalks along 68th Street from Indian School to Camelback. All there is right now is bike lanes, so pedestrians utilize the bike lane as a pedestrian access route. As it states there, design is nearing completion. We're establishing this connection because there's sidewalks on both ends of this segment of 68th Street, and the construction will start in summer 2026. This is also related to a stormwater project that is occurring, but these sidewalks are needed. It provides a much safer route for pedestrians to navigate. Indian Bend Wash Path renovations. This is a project that's been in the queue for a while. As you are aware, the Indian Bend Wash Path is really a signature piece of the city in its green belt, and it's aging. It was put in probably late 70s. So we have done a lot of renovations in the past, and will continue to do renovations. And these are important renovations that are underway right now. And we just recently completed the paths north and south of Osborne. That picture there is right there at, that's Earl, and that is looking north. That's a pretty new path. Continental Golf Course is on the right. The next segments are in McCormick Ranch, which is very necessary because of just grade and width is limited there. So our plan to do those segments is this summer. Dirt road paving. This project is in the Pinnacle Peak Ranchos area. It's up north, as you can see on that graphic, up at the Lone Mountain and Pima vicinity. These roads were just palliative roads. They look really nice now. It's all done. The roads obviously included Viadana, Black Cross, Granite Reef, Peakview, and Smokehouse. We worked with the residents on this and completed this project just recently. It's asphalt paving. It looks really good, and it is related to a particulate matter 10 project that due to dust control. Pima Road, via Linda to McDowell. This is a project underway. You've probably seen that and been out there. This is on the eastern boundary of the city of Scottsdale in partnership with the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community, who's the lead agency for this project. I'm involved in it from a perspective of programming and funding. It's widening Pima Road to 4 lanes, and it'll be a complete corridor with bike lanes, sidewalk, new sidewalks, new ramps, new signal improvements, again, bike lanes along the corridor, additional landscaping. They just actually installed landscaping, installing it right now from via Dave Ventura north towards the Loop of 101. That is part of the project. So a very important project, again, partnering with Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community, which secured a lot of funding for this project. This will be completed around, I put that in about fall 2026, so that's the plan. And then on to Susan's love of biking. Oh, my love too. April is Bike Month. As you know, right now at the City of Scottsdale, this season is high season. This is rolling in right into spring training, which is the first game Sunday. A lot of people, if you've been down to Old Town, you've seen a bunch of people down there. It's time to walk, and it's time to ride. So, you know, we did the Tour de Scottsdale. That was Saturday, March 28th, and then Cycle the Arts is a really, really fun event that we put on. This is our 20-year anniversary. That'll happen in April 19th. We work with Scottsdale Arts, Victoria Sahade, and she's the manager for public arts, and then we usually get an artist that she brings on, that her name is Ariana Enriquez, that designs the logo for a cycle. It's a pretty cool logo, but you have to come to see it. You have to come and get on the bike to see the logo and get the t-shirt. But no, you'll see eventually, but it's a pretty cool logo. We'll have t-shirts, we'll have knapsack bags that has the logo on it, stickers. We get about over 100 people that show up, so it's pretty fun. Bike to Work Day, April 22nd, and the Active Transportation Summit, which usually occurs at the Mesa Convention Center. That's Friday, April 17th. That is a great conference for people involved in active transportation. It's very, very good conference for just brainstorming. So those are our events that are happening in April. And here's Bike to Work Day, or as Susan says, wherever day. It doesn't matter where you're going. If you ride your bike by, you're gonna get some free swag. So that's, again, 22nd. We'll have specific stops. Indian Bend Wash Path is a very popular one. Obviously, that's used, as I mentioned, the Greenbelt's a huge jewel of the city. HU Sky Song and Civic Center here, right here, and Crosscut Canal is a very popular one. We have it at Oak and then Mountain View Park. Again, here, see, you got to see the logo.
You got to
Just
see
joking.
it without riding your bike
See, I was just,
today.
I was ramping you up for it. So here's the logo. It's a pretty cool logo that Ariana designed. And this Cycle the Arts is going to be unique because it's starting at Arabian Library. It's going to be on the north side, in northern area of Scottsdale. So everybody's welcome. It'll be a good time. And again, I said it's a 20-year anniversary. That logo is pretty neat looking. It's gives obviously the 20-year anniversary that shows that, you know, that's actually a gravel bike rider, which is pretty cool. I like that. And that's it. So if you have any questions or any insights or anything, a project there's other projects that are going, but those are our highlights and programs.
Thank you, Greg. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Koftahl.
Hi, Greg. Thank you for the updates. I'm sure Nathan could not have done a better job. So, just because I any chance I can, I'll bring this up. You talked about parking on the 2nd Street and how we're preserving that parking. I know I brought it up a bunch where, because I know other cities have done that, and I'm just wondering, or done this where they use the parking as the protection for the bike lane. So instead of being bike lane, parking, sidewalk, it's parking, bike lane, sidewalk. And is there any chance with this project or any upcoming projects where Scottsdale could try something like that instead of putting in bollards or concrete barriers or something like that? Is that something that would be possible to try?
Chair Wilcoxon and Commissioner Koftahl, great question. You know, 2nd Street right there is really constrained. We're looking at different alternatives. We've looked at really 3. Is that a possibility based on the constraints? Probably not. But another possibility is actually removing the parking and putting in a buffered bike lane. That is an alternative. As you're aware, parking is free in Old Town. At that location, you know, there's an in-lieu parking program, but it's a possibility that some of that parking can go away. One good thing about this is if it moves forward is the garage at Brown and 2nd Street. The plan to put a garage there, which will help in regards to if we do take parking, that can be mitigated by that garage. You know, there's a garage at Los Olivos right there behind the Mexican restaurant. So it's always going to be there. So in your configuration, probably not. A buffer bike lane, yeah, as an alternative, yes. So, you know, I know that configuration, but I think it's too constrained for that.
All right. I'm just always going to push it when
Sure.
I see a chance to. So, for the Indian Wash updates, can you go back to that image right there?
Let's see.
There. Okay. So I just want to say thank you to the staff because that's right near my house, and I remember talking to you guys and saying, like, you know, for that runoff there, when it would rain, dirt would pile there, and there just off is a cutout, so for you to go to your house or whatever. So those berms, or you know, those little those bags right there, I'm very grateful for that. So thank you, and for projects when it's right next to earth that washes out, that if the city could continue to do that, it's great. It makes it so much more usable throughout the year, having that and keeping the dirt from being washed in there. So thank you for that. On the Pima Road, I've ridden the bikeway several times in the past week. That's, you know, being impacted by it. And the detours on it are pretty bad. They're like at one point it tells you like, hey, you need to detour, and then it just stops you, and there's just a giant piece of cement missing, and your options are either to fight your way through bushes or to step out into the road and then go around it, and then you're still not supposed to cross the street there, and there's not really any clear way on how to do it. This weekend, when I was cycling it, I was trying to use the detours, and another cyclist who I passed earlier, he just opted to use the currently shut down, you know, the eastern or the western half of Pima where it's shut down, and he just used that to just ride the whole way because it was just too hard to figure out how the detours would work, or the detours just kind of stopped in the middle of everything, and it wasn't really clear how how a user was supposed to get around. So if there's any way that priority can be given to fixing the bikeway part of that, you know, that just off of Pima, those intersections where they go, that would be great. And then I also, again, wanted to give some kudos because there was one crossing there where when you were going on a bicycle, you'd come out and then you'd have to turn and go through gravel to hit the button, and then you would bring your bike back to the intersection and then wait for yours to get the signal. And it seems like the posts have been moved closer, so it's easier for somebody on a bicycle or walking to be able to not have to like walk out of their way to go press the button to come back and then have to come back. So I appreciated that, but it's really hard to navigate that bikeway currently. And like I said, there's sometimes it just seems like the road just ends, and they're like, well, find your own way, and there's no good options.
Thank you, Commissioner Goftal.
Yeah. And then just on the 20-year anniversary, you know, like gravel rider or roadie or whatever. When I went last year, I don't think there was anybody who looked like that on the Cycle VRs. There was people. It was like grandmas and children and everybody riding, you know, cruisers and beach cruisers, and you know, just kind of in a much more relaxed position. I mean, I do love it. I do love the throwback to the kind of 60s aesthetic that it has, even though I guess 20 years ago was still in the 2000s. Yeah. But yeah, that's the only thing that struck me there is that I do like the logo. I just, it doesn't seem to reflect the people who, at least in my 1 year of experience on there. So I would defer to Susan, who I know has been doing it for a while, on the type of people who tend to show up for that event. But I just wanted to make a comment on that. So, and that is all my comments and questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Kofta. Like that.
Commissioner Pankowitz, Commissioner Baker? And online, Commissioner Marmon, are you with us still?
Yes, I am. It was a good presentation, and I do not have any comments.
Thank you. And thank you, Greg. I don't have any comments either, other than I agree with Commissioner Kofta. I actually like the logo, but it is kind of a throwback to a different time.
Chair Wilcoxon and Commissioner Kofta, I get your I get your opinion.
It is very
I
groovy.
love it because I like ripping on my mountain bike, so I just think that's pretty cool. But you're right, that doesn't reflect. But it is, person on a bike, and they're kind of getting after it, riding hard, riding angry. I got you. And you don't see that on Cycle the Arts. You're right.
It is.
That is a good point.
But it is groovy.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. I'm totally biased, so.
It's from the 1900s, so.
Okay. With that, it comes to the end of our agenda, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, well, we will see everybody in April. Have a wonderful rest of the evening and a relaxing spring, and we'll see you in April.